8:30 headline time. Former President Jacob Zuma is being held at the Escort Correctional Centre in KwaZulu-Natal after handing himself over ahead of the midnight deadline. Zuma's imprisonment follows a lengthy legal battle to avoid the Constitutional Court's incarceration order. The country's highest court sentenced Zuma to 15 months in jail for contempt after he failed to attend hearings of the state capture inquiry. The Independent Electoral Commission has postponed the voter registration weekend scheduled for later this month by 2 weeks. The Commission said it had been forced into the delay by the third wave of COVID infections. And updating you on those numbers, 21,427 new cases of COVID-19 have been reported, pushing the number of active cases across the country to over 195,000 now. The National Institute for Communicable Diseases reported another 411 deaths. This takes the toll to 63,039. Right, that wraps up our news headlines and the news here on Morning Live. But of course, the news is what we're constantly covering because our top story has stolen the show today. That, of course, is former President Jacob Zuma spending his first night in jail. And of course, we've got on the line with us the former public protector, Thuli Madonsela. Prof, great to have you with us. Thanks again for your time here on Morning Live.
Good morning, Ian. Good morning, listeners. It's a privilege.
So let's get your reaction up front. What is your immediate reaction to this arrest?
It is both a sad day in South Africa and also a glorious day for the rule of law. It's sad because one of us is going to jail, and he's not just an ordinary one of us. He's an older person, 79 years old, somebody who was in the struggle, and somebody who was the president of this country. It's sad to see him go to jail, knowing though that he's the only person who could have prevented this from happening. It's a glorious day in that it says the rule of law prevails. Had the police and all of the relevant authorities not executed the judgment of the Constitutional Court, it would have sent shockwaves to the system, because it would have said that our justice system has eyes, and therefore the rule of law does not apply, which says nobody is above the law.
Professor Madonsela, on Sunday during that press briefing, we heard the former president, of course, single you out in particular as someone who potentially usurped his powers in terms of setting up and how this commission of inquiry into allegations of state capture has been set up. How do you respond to that?
Morning, Sakina. Former President Jacob Zuma knows that that allegation is neither true nor relevant. It's not true that I usurped his powers. The appointment process, as you all know, in the SABC and anywhere else in the world, has various stages, but the two key stages is selection and appointment. I did not take President Zuma's powers to appoint. And also, he didn't initiate this commission. I did. And I did so because he needed to answer very serious allegations that he was either causing or abetting the Gupta family, which was co-owning companies with his son. And he was aiding or abetting the Gupta family to get involved or to have the power in the appointment of ministers and their dismissal, and that power was being leveraged to favor companies co-owned by the Guptas and his son in terms of state contracts. And therefore, he needed to answer that question. I didn't take away his powers. But secondly, Sakina, nobody has a right to choose a judge that's going to judge them. There are so many people, hundreds of people are appearing before the Commission of Inquiry on state capture. They didn't choose the judge, and that's not unjust.
And in asserting that he is being treated unfairly, to the response that you just gave, Professor Madonsela, was this inquiry into allegations of state capture specifically set up to look at only that relationship, the Guptas and the former president and his son and the business relationships that existed among them? Or was this to look at the allegations of state capture overall, which would mean many more actors and players involved?
The State Capture Commission that I ordered and which was sanctioned by the highest court in the land was meant to look at allegations only into the conduct of President Zuma, because it was a part-head matter that the State Capture Commission simply needed to finish. Did he cause or aid the Gupta family, together with his son, to get involved in the appointment of ministers and SOE directors? And was that power leveraged to control tenders in government and in other opportunities within the state? That was the simple inquiry that I had started, couldn't finish, and then I ordered a commission of inquiry to finish it. President Zuma, on the other hand, expanded. So remember, this is the president who said he had no powers. I took away his powers. He expanded the powers of the Commission of Inquiry. And that's why then we've heard many stories, many of which have nothing to do with state capture. They're just about corruption or alleged corruption and fraud in state capture. So to answer your question shortly, what then we have is a Commission of Inquiry whose main job is to finish the investigation I didn't conclude. And a second job is to do all other investigations relating to corruption and fraud as directed by President Zuma. And it has done that.
Just a point of clarity as well, and I mean this is at the heart of what the former president was saying. The reason why he did not want to appear at the state capture inquiry is because of the conflict of interest in the relationship between himself and Justice Zondo. Did he at any time, and I know you've answered this before, but I mean let's get that clarity once again, did he at any time during the appointment of Justice Zondo for the state capture inquiry say that there was a conflict right in the beginning, or did this only come up when it was his time to appear?
No, former President Zuma never alerted anyone that there was a conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest in the appointment of Deputy Chief Justice Zondo. Not only did he have a right to point out that conflict of interest, he had a duty, because he was the president of the country, sworn to uphold the Constitution. He was the number one defender of the Constitution. It was his duty, in line with Section 96 and Section 195, to make sure that he did not appoint somebody who's the subject of a conflict of interest. And he never pointed that out, which, if what he's telling us is true, is something he already knew. He only started complaining about a conflict of interest when when Deputy Chief Justice asked him relevant questions. Because you remember when he got his time to appear before the Commission of Inquiry, he told a whole lot of stories, a whole lot of theories, conspiracy theories, but didn't come to the party on the questions he refused to answer to me, which he now had an opportunity to answer to the chairperson of the Commission of Inquiry.
Prof, you mentioned it a bit earlier, and of course this was in response to the question Sakina asked you about the scope of the state capture inquiry. And of course, yes, we are seeing Zuma now behind bars, but it was not him alone, and I mean, there's so much more that still needs to be heard. There is a lot that needs to be said, and the former president has threatened on many, many occasions that he will speak out, and we're still waiting for that moment for him to speak out. I mean, it's estimated that in excess of 50 billion rand has been stolen from South Africa due to state capture, and of course, at the heart of it all is the Gupta family. I mean, ultimately, where are we going? Where are we hoping to go with all of this?
The State Capture Commission is going to conclude its process, and as you've said, Leanne, it's not a small matter. We're talking about close to 50 billion and more. This is money that could have built hospitals, bridges, schools, and provided kids with an opportunity to participate in the fourth industrial revolution. And therefore, it's money, if we can get some of it back, it would be a good thing to do that. And therefore, the Commission will conclude its process, indicate whether the allegations against President Zuma were indeed proven, and then the new allegations that have come up because of the expanded powers of the Commission of Inquiry will also be concluded, and we'll find out whether the people who are alleged to have committed some kinds of corruption did indeed commit that corruption. I do want to indicate again that conduct is not state capture just because somebody calls it state capture. If, for example, I'm providing chicken to somebody every weekend, a bribe pack of chicken to somebody every weekend for them to give me tenders, that's not state capture. State capture is when you have power over that person. You have the power to have them hired or fired. And that's very serious because it doesn't go just down to tenders. It goes to, do we have a democracy? Or we think we have a democracy, yet we're not governed in terms of the will of the people, in terms of the dictates of the Constitution. A handful of people have leverage by using their hold over the president to govern this country within the shadows of the state.
Advocate Madonsela, just before we let you go, just something else that the former president alluded to during that press briefing on Sunday, that he questions, the treatment that he's received. He has always said that he hasn't received fair treatment. And in terms of appointing the chairperson of the commission, what is your knowledge in terms of what happened during that process? Was Judge Desai first recommended, and why was there then an about turn and Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo appointed?
I'm not privy to that information, but Sakina, let's be honest about this. If President Zuma was concerned about the change of the name of the judge, he had the power to say so right at the point of appointment. Why would he keep quiet and hope this would work in his favor? And only when it doesn't work in his favor, when he's being asked the difficult questions that everyone else is being asked, then he suddenly turns around and says, the judge is conflicted, the judge was not supposed to be appointed, blah, 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 blah.
So you have been following the Commission's proceedings, I would imagine, Professor Madonsela. Do you think that the former president has been treated fairly?
I think so. In fact, the Constitutional Court even commented about the fact that he was treated differently from others, because from the moment he disrespected and treated with contempt the Zondo Commission, he should have then been subjected to contempt proceedings. But they still arranged with him and his lawyers to discuss it and make arrangements for him to appear before the commission in a dignified way. It was only when these kind of gentlemanly arrangements stopped working and he started not only refusing to appear before the commission, but publicly treating it with contempt, when then the commission was left with no other option but to go to the Constitutional Court. The Constitutional Court itself treated him fairly, to the point of, even when he totally disregarded its process, the Constitutional Court wrote to former President Zuma to ask for his comments on possible sentencing. He once more treated it with utmost contempt. And I don't think he has been treated differently from anyone, from other people, and negatively. I think everything has been done to make sure that this process is dignified, fair, just, and equitable.
All right, we'll leave it there. Professor Thuli Madonsela, our former public protector here in South Africa, thank you very, very much for giving us your reaction and views with regard to what has unfolded since, of course, 20 minutes past 11 when that motorcade left in Nkandla, and we now see that the former president has spent the first night in jail.